Holmes, I would love to know whether God exists, and one of the ways I'm told I can do that is to look at the world, which this God supposedly made, and try to infer from that world what this God may be like. So, I ask you, what kind of world did God make? How does it work?
The kind of world God made may differ when you're looking at the skies and when you're looking on Earth. It may differ in physics and in biology. You pick that up almost already when you open the book of Genesis. God separates the day from the night and the firmament from the sky, and that's almost the work of an architect, if you like. But when God, having separated the waters from the sky, looks at earth, God says, "Let the earth bring forth swarms of creatures." That's a little different, isn't it? That's inviting earth to generate swarms of creatures, or now we would say biodiversity. So if you like, I think that's a pretty good beginning approach to what happened. Because don't the biologists say that earth brought forth swarms of creatures?
If I remember my Hebrew correctly, the verb and the noun are the same, so it's like swarm with swarms.
Swarm up with swarming creatures.
Yeah, it's a multiplicative effect.
Yeah. Well, maybe the Hebrews were ahead of the biologists with their simpler word for biodiversity or super biodiversity. But my idea is then now that Earth is invited to create, the creatures in some sense create themselves under the inspiration of God. And now I think that's the account we get from the biological world, from evolutionary history. It took a lot longer, if you like, than perhaps the Hebrew scribes had in mind. And yet essentially we get the kind of world which brings forth of itself these creatures under the inspiration of God. And I think that's a better concept of creation for creatures. Now, maybe you need a divine architect at the Big Bang, getting the fine-tuning all set right or something like that. But on Earth, it's hard for me to envision how you can fine-tune the creation of elephants or an ostrich, right? These are more open-ended processes in which the creatures struggle to find their own adapted fit. That's a richer concept of creation. And now I will say, really, that's a better way of thinking of God, not so much as an architect, as a father, right? A father or a mother confronting the raising of a child, right? Will co-create with the child. They will open up opportunity space for the child, or else they can't have a child that grows up into adult maturity. I'm taking that metaphor back into the evolutionary Genesis.
That's fascinating. Actually, some part of Jewish philosophy has human beings being a co-creator with God. It has less of the predestination, less of the absolute deterministic God that gives us, which some religions do, an illusion of being in charge of things when in reality we're not. I think what you're saying is that there is a co-creation going on, whether with the earth itself in the process of evolution or with human beings.
If you don't like the word architect, as I don't, and maybe you think the word Father is sort of too much lifted out of the biblical tradition, then you can think of God, if you're of an athletic mind, as a coach. Will that work? Or if you're a musician, you can think of God as an orchestrator, if you like that. Or if you're a chemist, you can think of God as a catalyst, if you like that. Or if you are an educator, as I am and we are, you can think of God as a kind of teacher. All of these are rich ways of thinking of God, which are consistent with this sort of creative genesis that we find on earth.
So doesn't that mean that even God, in God's own self, did not know for sure what the outcome would be when he or she or it created the world?
Amen, if you like.
Wow. That's different than what many people
I
think.
used to be a Calvinist predestinarian.
Wow.
And I may still be a believer, but I've given up on that tight predestinarian concept. Openness is required for creativity. I find that openness in the natural world. I find it repeatedly as I look at the sort of nature that I find, and I incorporate it into my theology, and I have a richer concept of God than I did before.